Oh my God, guys. Oh my God. I just finished watching Money in the Bank and Liv Morgan not only successfully winning the Money in the Bank match, which I was really actually hoping that Liv would win it, and I'm glad she finally got her moment. But not only doing that, but then later on that night, cashing in on Ronda Rousey in the same night to become the SmackDown Women's Champion. Mind you, she was on Raw, but of course, at this point, I mean, the brand split seems like it's kind of been down the drain for quite a while now. But even so, wow, what a moment for her, guys. The crowd was red hot. A strong start to the show. Um, and Austin Theory, he wins the men's Money in the Bank pre-case. I'll touch on that in a second. But man, what a night. I gotta say, I really didn't see Liv. I really didn't know who was gonna win this thing. It was so many times where it seemed like, one of them was gonna get the briefcase, and I think really the story of this was more so how it ended because once again Becky looked as though she was about to win, and Becky had some pretty and crazy spots in this match. I mean, you had the one spot where she actually climbed the top of the ladder and did her leg drop on two of them to the ladder. So that was a pretty brutal, pretty intense moment in the match. You also had a spot where Chelsea Blackheart, she, multiple times was climbing up the top of the ladder, and it looked as though she was gonna get it, and she actually fell. Excuse me, actually fell face first on the ladder. So you had a lot of crazy moments. The fans were absolutely red hot for this whole entire thing. Lacey Evans, she got her moments in there. A lot of times they were hitting each other with ladders. A lot of times they were really getting tackled with ladders. And in the end, Liv Morgan, who, like I said, I felt like, I didn't know who they were going to give this thing to, but it was interesting. Part of me was like, don't give it to someone. I didn't want Becky to win just because Becky, has already had her time as Raw Women's Champion, so I didn't think it would make made sense for her to win it, even though she probably should have won it like maybe in the year 2018 or something. You know, but she didn't win it this time either. And then also, you had so many different times in this match where it just seemed like different some one of the others. Even Raquel, she had a pretty good showing in this match too, where it looked as though she was gonna win. So, like I said, it was just a lot of different times, and like I said, the fans, you got to give it to them in Las Vegas. They were red hot for much of the show, actually, up until maybe the Ronda and Talia match. They weren't as hot for that, but most of the show, they were really hot. You got to give it to them. You got Liv Morgan winning the Money in the Bank. Really happy for her. Really happy she finally got her moment. She was in tears, and Becky was just having a fit. Becky just couldn't take it. Like, Becky has really been on a downward spiral lately. She was happy on Raw because she ended up qualifying to be in the Money in the Bank last week when it was a fatal five-way match, when she pinned Dewdrop, hitting her with a manhandle slam for the top rope. So, you know, she qualified. So she was acting as though she was on cloud nine on Raw. And once again, though, when it comes to the big one, she loses. So she was having a fit. They kept the camera her alive when Liv, was in tears about this. But Asuka, Asuka had a pretty good showing too. Asuka, there were points in the match it seemed like Asuka was going to win for a second time. They actually even showed a recap of when Asuka won back in 2020. So it even seemed like Asuka, she was going to win it again when she knocked everybody down with her kicks and hits. So, like I said, just absolutely uh, incredible match here. You had You got Miss Money in the Bank and Liv Morgan winning the Smackdown Women's title on the same night. Bobby Lashley's the new United States champion. Did not see that coming, but then looking towards what they did in the main event, it seems as though it makes perfect sense now as why Bobby won. I was surprised Bobby won just because it seemed like, with Vince being so high on Theory, it seemed like he was going to have a pretty lengthy U.S. title reign. And normally, if someone goes from a mid card to in the main event scene, it's like a gradual build with them. You even seen it with Bobby Lashley last year. He was United States champion at first from like September 2020. I think when he beat Apollo Crews for the belt at Night of Champions. Wait a minute, what was it? Clash of Champions. I think when he beat him for the belt, and he held it all the way until he lost it at like the Elimination Chamber, but he didn't take the pin. John Morrison at the time took the pin. That's when Matt Riddle had won the belt, the United States Championship. But you saw that with him, and then he went on to win the WWE Championship in March from The Miz, the March 1st episode of Raw. So normally that's kind of how they would go mostly, but looking at the way that they went about this match, it almost makes perfect sense as to why they had Theory lose. But I got to give it to him. The crowd was red hot for Bobby the whole time. Bobby just had the crowd really behind him. He managed to have Theory tapped to the hurt lock. Theory got a little bit of offense in. Theory actually poked him in the eye at one point and hit him with the spear, and it seemed as though he was going to get the victory, but Bobby managed to, you know, hit him in the hurt lock. There was actually a point in the match where Bobby hit a power slam, like he picked up Theory really high and went for like this power slam, and the crowd was like crazy for that. There was a point where he picked up Theory and smashed, hit his face on the ring post like he normally does. And actually, they recapped what he did on Raw when he beat him in that handicap match. When he went for like a cradle type of pin, like crossface cradle type of pin. He actually tried to go for that pin again, but Theory kicked out. So it was a pretty decent back and forth match. And the crowd, definitely made it a lot better. Made it even better than what it was. For like the first couple of matches of this show, this crowd was just amazing. And they kept the flow going from the women's Money in the Bank match up until here. The fans are really behind Bobby. Like, they were really chanting for Bobby here. And Bobby, Bobby did it. He won the United States Championship. That was a great moment for him. Now he's a 3-time United States champion. It's only to see, if it's going to be defended on pay-per-views again. Now that Theory's lost it, because we saw with Finn, he didn't even get the defended at WrestleMania. But we'll definitely see what happens with that. And also, as this night just gets even crazier, so you had Theory, Bobby beat him for the United States Championship. Later in the night, we see what happens. It makes perfect sense. Also, you had, what was the next match? Was it the Bianca and the Carmella match? Yeah, so, the Bianca and Carmella match. Yeah, so you have Bianca successfully retain the Raw Women's Championship against Carmella, and Carmella actually attacked her afterwards. Probably one of the weaker matches of the show, but overall, though, I still thought it was pretty good. I still thought it was really good for Bianca. Most didn't really expect Carmella to be her opponent as a replacement for Rhea, but maybe we might get her and Rhea at SummerSlam. But then again, with the way how they ended it, who knows? They might extend this feud since she attacked her after the match was over. But it was still pretty good, though. Pretty good match between them. Bianca wins decisively with the KOD, but then Carmella still attacks her afterwards, being frustrated with the loss. So you had that whole thing going on. And what I would probably have to say may have been the match of the night. the Street Profits and the Usos. You know, you pretty much knew the Usos were not losing the titles, but they really had you believe at certain parts of this match, especially when the Street Profits hit the blockbuster, like they were really about to win, and the Usos just kicked out just in time. And there was even a time where the Usos hit the super kicks on Montez Ford and he kicked out. You had a time where Angelo Dawkins went for like a splash outside of the ring. He stayed on his feet, so that was pretty good when that happened. Like that was a pretty amazing spot in the match. So yeah, absolutely amazing match. Maybe up to that point, maybe even the match of the night because it was incredible. That's not taking anything away from Women's Money in the Bank because that was a great way to open the show, but it probably nearly was a match at night. But then I think the ending kind of may have been the only thing that I would have to say that was somewhat a problem because basically when they hit the 1D on Montez, it showed the replay that apparently his hand was still up. And I didn't realize it until the commentators pointed out I seen his hand up, but didn't realize his shoulder wasn't all the way down. So he's making the case that technically he didn't. He had actually kicked out of that pin, but the ref still counted it. So probably they might expand this, but you knew that because the Usos haven't been champs for a year yet. They're close to a year, but not exactly. You pretty much knew that they weren't going to lose the belts as long as Roman's is champ. But yeah, they really had you believe multiple times in this match that the Usos, like they were going to lose the belts, especially that time when Montez hit the splash on, I think it was Jay, and Jimmy just ran in and stopped it just in time. So it was so many times in this match where it just seemed like these guys were going to lose the belts, but these guys just gave it all. They really went ham here. Like I said, they've had some incredible matches against each other, but this one was like New Day Uso type of good. Like this really reminded me of a lot of the classic matches the Usos and New Day used to have. Because this was just absolutely amazing. The crowd definitely made it even better. Just so many spots. Of course, the famous spot where Montez runs up and does his dive from over the rope. He did that on the Usos. The Usos, like I said, they really, did their part in this thing with the constant super kicks. I don't think they hit the splash at all in this, or if they hit it, one of them had kicked out. But it was very intense, and the Usos managed to retain here. So I guess the only question about that is, where do they go from here, as far as tag teams? And I wouldn't be surprised if, based on the finish, they keep the Profits things going. Because where else could they go at this point? Viking Raiders just turned heel, and I don't see them feuding with the Usos right away. But and actually, they already did face the Usos before they turned heel and they lost. I don't even think that was on pay-per-view. I think that was on Smackdown, so if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure they faced, I don't know, but that was crazy. Then you had an Italian Ronda thing, man. That was a pretty intense. It was fine. Probably I would say compared to the Roman Championship match where I said it was one of the weaker ones, it was probably weaker than that to some degree because the crowd was still hot for that. But for this match, they weren't as reactive. But still good though. Ronda still managed to get Natalya to tap. She actually used a sharpshooter on Natalya, so that was pretty cool. But like I said, it was fine. Ronda retains here, and then this is the part where I talked about Liv earlier. Liv comes out after she sees Ronda struggling. I really thought Liv, based on what she said backstage, and they asked her who who she would cash in on. She said she didn't want to squander the moment, basically. And I really thought she was going to hold on to this for a while. Like, I didn't really expect her to cash in on the same night. We've seen it happen twice already with Alexa Bliss and Bayley. Back in 2018, Alexa did it on Nia Jax, and Bayley did in 2019 at Charlotte. So I really didn't think she would do this, but this is an interesting way for them to have Ronda lose, by getting cashed in on it. Not only that, but the fact that she just kind of just shook it off. Now, I don't think this will be the end of her and Liv by a long shot. I definitely can see her trying to go after Liv in a match since she just took a Smackdown's title. But it was interesting because, she came out there and immediately Ronda put her in an ankle lock. And then she was trying to get out the ankle lock. And as soon as she got out, she kicked the bad leg of Ronda, went for a roll-up, the most devastating move in wrestling at this point, and won the match. Did not expect that. I don't know what it is about when it comes to women Money in the Banks, why they're so obsessed with having them cash in on the same night or cash in, the night after, like last year with Nikki Ash. Like, I think it really ruins the suspense by having them cash in so early instead of just waiting it out. But it happened. The crowd was definitely hot. They were booing Ronda when she had her in the ankle lock, but they got up, when they saw her win the match. So that was definitely a refreshing moment there. I'm so happy for her, even though, I guess the real question is how this reign is going to go, as we seen what happened last year with Nikki Ash. Because it's not more so if you're winning the title with the Money in the Bank briefcase, but it's how you're booked after you win it. And she's one of those underdogs who we all wanted, a lot of us have wanted to see her win a big one, but now it's a question of, how she's going to be booked upon winning the big one. And that's always a challenge for a lot of wrestlers that unfortunately have to deal with the booking at times. But nonetheless, great moment for her. And the main event, talk about it briefly. Austin Theory won this thing, and I'm just gonna say this: I absolutely do not see this man cashing in on Roman or Brock. If he cashes in on Roman or Brock, that's gonna say a lot. I don't see it happening. They keep saying whoever wins, they could cash in on either one of them at SummerSlam with the last man standing match. I don't see that happening. I would be very surprised if they actually pull the trigger and have Theory be the one to take the belt from Roman if Brock does not do it at SummerSlam, or even takes on Brock as soon as he wins it. I just don't see that happening. But who knows? It could happen. I would be surprised. It's not like that's the first time Roman's been cashing on, but at the time that Roman was originally cashing on, he wasn't at the level that he is now with the way they're pushing him. So that's the thing. That's why I said I would just be surprised about that too, in a way. And for Brock, I'd be even more surprised considering what Brock did to him in their Elimination Chamber match in Saudi Arabia early this year. But Theory managed to sneak his way into the match. He didn't need to qualify. He got in as the last entrant. And I kind of had a feeling there was no way he was losing twice after that happened. But again, they still, much like the women's match, there was still spots in the match where you kind of thought it almost looked like somebody was going to get their moment. At some points, it seemed like Drew was going to win up until Butch came out and tried to stop him. It almost seemed like he was going to win and get his moment. Him and Sheamus actually teamed up a couple of times. It even seemed like Riddle was going to get his moment. He RKO'd Seth from the top of the ladder. It seemed like, Sammy, because Sammy a lot of times stayed out the match and just kind of waited to try to climb the ladder. So it seemed like he was going to get his moment. They actually did a pretty cool spot where they all picked up on us and powerbombed them, almost like a massive shield type of thing here through the announce table. to keep him down, because throughout the match he stayed in for a lot of it, beating them all down, and they couldn't they couldn't keep him down. So they tried hitting their finishers on him and eventually just picked them up together as a unit to get rid of him. But for much of the match, though, they were drawn. At one point, they actually managed to just get him knocked down, and they threw a bunch of ladders on him, thinking that was going to keep him down. And eventually, he just got back up from those ladders that they tossed on him. So it took for them to put him through that announce table to get rid of him. But I thought that was a pretty cool spot there. But almost, he, as you can see, he was walking gingerly when he was on the ladder. As you can see, that must have been hard for him, climbing a ladder like that. But yeah, it was just a really, crazy match. All these guys really definitely gave it their all. And it's someone new winning the match, Money in the Bank, but definitely not the person you would have expected to win. Honestly, I don't know who would have won. I mean, Seth was like the favorite, but like Seth has already had his moment. But at the same time, Seth has been on fire lately in this cup, and I'm talking about as far as his character. It'd have been a kind of redemption for him, especially since he lost 3 times in a row to Cody. But yeah, I mean, who knows? I don't know what route they would have went, but it was just an interesting choice with Theory here, especially with what they keep saying about SummerSlam. Like, I could believe Seth cashing on them because he's done it before, or I could believe that maybe Riddle might do it because the whole thing with Roman. But with Theory, I just don't see that happening. I think, if anything, he might attempt, and then it's unofficial, and then he gets attacked or something, and he just holds on to it longer. Like, I don't see him like cashing in at SummerSlam. I just don't see that happen. But who knows? So that's pretty much what I want to say, guys. Just Bayley come on here talking about Liv Morgan and her getting her moment, and just briefly talk about the Money in the Bank show overall. But overall, pretty decent show. The crowd was red hot for much of this, and yeah, it was great. So start off with Master Flex, like Thomas, I don't know, talk to you guys then. Peace.